Welcome back to Milan Recording Studios. My name is James Powell Shotgrass, and in today's video, as you can see, I am literally surrounded by keyboards. The instrument line that we're going to be taking a look at is Yamaha's famous P series, which is it begins at their entry-level instrument and it works all the way up to some rather high-end instruments. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the entire P series. We're going to be doing it in order of price, so we're going to start off with the P45, then we're going to do the 121, the 125, then we're going to do the DGX-660, and finally the P515, which is the highest priced of all of these. So there's going to be a lot of cool things that we're going to be talking about in this video, because all of these instruments do have their pros and cons. There are some pros to the P45 that the P515 can't say. The P45 is the most affordable one, whereas the P515 is the priciest. You can see that there's going to be a lot of small, subtle differences between all of these instruments, and I will also give you guys a brief playing demonstration of each of these as well. I'm going to typically stick to, I think, one piece per song, and these are not going to be in-depth reviews in today's video, because if I did that, this video would literally be 5 hours long, an hour for each of these. So I'm only going to give you guys a very, very brief overview, and I'm only going to focus on the acoustic piano sounds. If you want to see a full in-depth review of any one of these models, or all of them, by all means go check out my YouTube channel, because there will be videos of all of these coming up very soon. Most of these already have been published. If there isn't one that hasn't been published, it will be published very, very soon, so make sure to stay tuned for that. The final thing I wanted to mention before diving into this review is just something regarding my channel. I do want to mention that all of these instruments have been purchased with my own money that has been earned from the YouTube channel. While I do like Yamaha, and Yamaha seems to like me, I do not get any sponsorships, any discounts, any, artist discounts. None of that is used for buying these digital pianos. I buy all of these the same exact way that you would through buying a digital piano, through online retailers and sometimes physical retailers like, brick and mortar stores as well. So all of this has been paid for through the YouTube channel, and so I want to thank all of you, the viewers, for watching the videos and indirectly helping me to continue this. I'm aware that there are quite a few ads on the channel, and I've also been made aware that a few of the people who have stumbled across my channel have become frustrated with them and literally told me they're turning on their ad blocker specifically for my channel, and I do apologize for the ads, but you do have to understand that without them, I couldn't continue this channel. So while I do realize that the ads can be annoying, it's the only way I'm able to continue doing what I do, which I hope many of you guys can appreciate. So let's dive right into the video. So with that out of the way, let's begin to talk about the Yamaha P45. That is the instrument I'm sitting at here today. The P45 is the cheapest instrument in the P series line, and it retails for around $500 US. This price may fluctuate depending on where you are in the world, but here in the States, it's about $500. For that price, you actually get a pretty decent instrument. You might expect that for $500, you wouldn't really get anything good, but actually, it's very, very playable. The action that's found in the P45 is one that you'll get very accustomed to hearing in this video. It's the GHS action. This is a very acceptable action for this price range, and it's one of the best in the price range. There's not too many digital pianos in this price category. In the future, though, I will be making videos of the other pianos from other brands in this price category. So if that sounds cool, you might want to stay tuned for that too. The P45, of course, comes with an owner's manual, which is here. I just have it up on the music desk to demonstrate the music desk. The music desk that comes with the P45 is pretty bare bones and very simple. The plastic, you'll find that it isn't as high quality as the others that you'll see in this video, and it is kind of short. As you can see, the owner's manual does stick out over the top, so if you're using single sheets of sheet music paper, they might fold over the top after a while, so you might want to put this up against a wall or have a sheet of cardboard behind the music desk. Overall, though, I think it does do the job pretty well. One of the reasons I have the owner's manual here is not only to demonstrate the music desk, but also to discuss some of the features that this instrument has. As you can see, the user interface here is very minimal. You have 2 buttons and a switch and a slider, and that is it. The reason that the user interface is so minimal is because many of the features are hidden within the key. For example, if I push and hold the function button and hit this E, it'll turn the metronome on and off, as you can hear. So it's things like this that are hidden within the keys, and many of them are not labeled. The metronome is, but everything else is not labeled. So if you want to interact with the instrument through the instrument itself, you will need to pull out the owner's manual and read through it, and they have full diagrams and explanations of all the features hidden within the keys, which are more than you might think. You can layer two voices, I believe you can octave shift, you can even adjust the balance between two voices that you have layered, you can put it into a duo mode, you can add and detract reverb, you can change the touch sensitivity, you can even transpose the pitch and fine-tune the pitch of the instrument through the keys. That's a lot of functionality, which is pretty cool. So there's a lot of things that the P45 can in fact do for the price point. The pedal unit that comes with the P45 is not so much a pedal unit, but it's more of a foot switch. This is the foot switch for the P45. It definitely does do the job. I find it tends to wander around on the floor as I play it, and it's definitely not the best foot switch on the market. You can upgrade the P45 to either a single pedal unit, like a proper pedal unit from Yamaha, or even a triple pedal, and the P45 does have its own optional stand you can buy as well from Yamaha. This is the one that comes with it though, and it does the job. The power unit, or the power supply that comes with it, is called the PA150. This is the box it comes in, and this is what the power supply itself actually looks like. Pretty basic. I'm sure you've seen these type of things before, but I just thought I'd show you, because why not? One of the only, well, not the only, obviously it's a $500 instrument and there's going to be some sacrifices, but probably one of the biggest sacrifices you'll make with the P45 is the fact that there are no line outputs. It does have a headphone jack, which oddly enough, even though there's a nice cutout right down here for a headphone jack, there's no headphone jacks there. It's in the back. I don't know why. But while the P45 does have one singular headphone jack that technically you can use as a amp output as well, to output to an amplifier, it's not as high quality as a proper line output jack, and I would like to see companies, even in this price bracket, put line output jacks on the instrument. While the P45 doesn't have the highest quality sound engine as the P121 or the P515, it's definitely not bad, and it certainly would be acceptable to perform at a friend's house or on location just for your first time gig ever. That would be pretty cool to be able to do, and technically you can do that with the headphone jack, but it sounds better coming out through a line output, like a proper one. A lot of people like to argue with me about that, but you know, I've been doing this type of thing for quite some time, and I've had some very strange experiences trying to use headphone jacks to output to a mixing console or to output to an amplifier. Sometimes you'll get hiss, sometimes you'll get buzzes, sometimes sounds will randomly cut out. It's nowhere near as good as using a proper line output. So when I play this digital piano, which I'm about to in a minute, you will be hearing the direct signal coming out through the headphone jack in the back of the instrument through such a cable like this. It's got a stereo connector on one end and then two TRS connectors on the other end, so you'll be able to hear it in stereo. Let's check out how the acoustic piano sample of the P45 sounds. That's the only sound sample I will touch on any of these digital pianos for this review. If you want to hear the other sounds, you also might want to go check out my full reviews of these, and the only piece I'll be playing in today's video will be my treble test piece, since everybody seems to like it. So that is the sound of the default piano of the P45. Once again, I'm not going to go through every single sound or even any of the other sounds. I'll leave that for the full reviews. The sound of the internal speakers on the P45 are rather stuffy, but they are adequate certainly for home performance. But I do want to make an important note about those speakers. As I mentioned, the only way to get a direct signal out of the P45 is to plug a jack into the headphones and then run that into a audio interface. What I'm doing here for this video is I'm running the P45 into our mixing board to get the direct signal, and then to be able to hear myself, I'm actually using one of the monitor speakers to hear the actual P45. So the sound of that is coming through a monitor speaker right now and not actually the instrument itself. The reason for this is because I cannot enable the speakers when playing while something's plugged into the headphone jack. If I go to page 11 in the manual, you will actually see that in the top right corner of the page, it will say, and you guys can't see this, but I'll read it for you, the speakers are automatically shut off when a plug is inserted into this jack. Many other manufacturers have ways of toggling on and off the speakers regardless of what is plugged into what jack. The P45 unfortunately does not do that, which is one of the shortcomings of this instrument. Most people I don't think would be recording with this because while the sound is far from terrible, it's also not excellent either. It's not really something you'd probably be recording with on a daily basis. So it's not a massive drawback of the P45, but regardless, it is still something I wanted to talk about. I also wanted to briefly talk about the action a little bit more because it'll be coming up again in the video, and I don't really need to describe it every single time. It feels the same on many of the digital pianos we'll be covering in today's video, and that is the GHS action. I believe I mentioned it once already. The GHS action is perfectly adequate for playing virtually every type of music. It doesn't have some of the benefits that you'd find in a higher grade action like wooden keys and let-off and things like that, but it still has a very respectable feel, especially for the $500 price point. It's one of the better actions money can buy. It has a very good feel. The action does get slightly heavier in towards the back of the key, but not severely enough to detract from most performance pieces, and playing basically anything from mid-level classical music, rock, pop, jazz, blues, and most other piano repertoire works perfectly fine on the GHS action. Let's check out another one of Yamaha's P-Series pianos now. Up next in the P-Series line is the Yamaha P121, and it could have been a little bit interchangeable. I could have talked about the P125 first or the P121, but because the 121 is smaller and has less keys, I figured I'd talk about it now. The P125 and the P121, though, are virtually identical aside from the number of keys that they have, and that's why the owner's manual for both of them is actually the same and works for both. As you can see, it says P125 and or P121. So the P121, there's a number of different upgrades from it over the P45. First of all, you get a better sound engine that has a much more high quality sound. You get the same action though, the GHS. You also get a few little small details, like for example, this one has a little bit of felt at the back of the keys, which the P45 didn't. A cute little attention to detail. You get better speakers on the P121 that have a clearer, more full sound, and one of the most important things, at least to me, is that you get proper direct line outs on the P121. For just a few $100s more, you get proper line outputs that do not switch off the speakers when you plug something in. You also have proper headphone jacks up here in that little cavity I mentioned before. There's actually two of them in this little niche, which is pretty great, so you and a teacher could plug in headphone jacks together and practice silently, or you could show your friend or family member what you're playing without disturbing the rest of the household, so that's a pretty nice touch. The user interface of the P121 also has more things going on as well. You've got a lot more buttons now. Before we only had 2 buttons and this slider. Now we have way more. Some of the buttons over here control the various sounds, which you also have more of on the P121. If you push the same sound button over and over again, it will cycle through the 4 different variations of each, and you have 4 different variations of acoustic pianos, electric pianos, organs, clavinet and vibraphone sounds, strings, and bass sounds as well. In the P121, you also have metronome abilities like before. You have a rhythm function, which is new for the P121. Have a listen real quick. So those are new for the P121 too. Those are nice and loud too, and you also have a demo and song feature here too. Just like with the just like the P45, the P121 also has many features hidden within the keys, many of the same things: octave shift, changing the intonation, and also changing the speed of the metronome and rhythm function. So there's many different things hidden within the keys of the P121, so it's always a great idea to keep the manual on hand or just re-download it from online if you've lost it to be able to remember what keys do what, because most of them are not labeled. The P121 uses the exact same switch foot switch we saw before, this guy right here. I don't remember the name of it, but again, it does the job. It also, once I get that down, it also uses the same exact power supply we had before, the PA150 power supply, and once again, it's a power supply. Let's have a listen to the default piano sound of the P121, and this time I'll be able to listen to the internal speakers of the P121 itself, which is always a nice luxury. As you can hear, that piano sound is crisper, clearer, and a bit more realistic than on the P45. While the P45 sound wasn't terrible, the P121 is a step above. And of course, it's a step above in price class as well. The P121 ranges is in that price class between $500 and $1,000, and of course, it's on the lower end spectrum of that. It's definitely not $1,000. So the P121 is a little bit more expensive, but still considerably affordable over the P45, and I think for the price boost, you also get a pretty good performance boost as well. Another thing that's changed, as you can see, is the music desk. It's now taller a little bit and also considerably wider, which is always great, and overall the P121 is really fantastic. The P121, the chief difference between it and the P125, which we'll check out here in the moment, is the fact that the P121 has less keys. It only has 73, whereas the P45 and all the other ones in the P series range have a full 88 keys. So you're missing a few on the bottom and you're missing a few on the top. And while a serious pianist who wants to practice full-blown classical music might miss those extra keys, a beginning pianist or someone who's going to be specializing in pop and rock and jazz music probably wouldn't miss them at all, which would make the P121 a really great alternative to an 88-key digital piano for moving on the road, because it's really compact, and also if you just have a small living space, the P121 would fit that niche quite nicely. Up next in the Yamaha P series is the P125, which, as you can see, looks basically identical to the P121. And as a matter of fact, everything that came with the 121 will also come with the 125. This uses the same exact action as the 121. It uses the same speakers as the 121. It has the same music desk. It has the same owner's manual. It has the same little foot switch, and it also has the same power supply too. So that fell on the floor. So everything else that came with the P121 will also come with the P125, as well as the added bonus of being able to use line outputs with the P125 too, so that is really, really wonderful. The sound engine of the P125 is the same as the P121, so of course it will sound exactly identical. To keep you guys from getting bored, I will instead play Bach's First Fugue from the Well-Tempered Clavier on this instrument. We'll push the limits of the action a little bit more and see how it handles that. As you can hear, although that's a much more technically advanced piece than my basic treble test piece, you will hear that the action was able to handle it completely fine. The dynamic response of the GHS is not as high as for example, the NWX, which we'll cover later on in the video, but for basic music and even Bach fugues, it does quite well, and I have no troubles at all playing that piece on this instrument. One thing I will say is that for some reason the P121's action felt slightly more crisp than the P125, but I'm sure that's just some small variance between the actions. I know that they both use the exact same action and the exact same sounds. One thing I have kind of omitted in this review so far is that all of the instruments in this video all can be available in white as well. And if you look at the box, you'll see that they say P125B. That's because there's a white variant, which is called the P125WH, and this is true for all of the models we will cover in today's video. They look really nice in white as well, and all of them are available with a home stand as well, like a home style stand for the home. You can purchase this separately for the P45, the P121, the P125, and one other model we'll cover later on in this video, and the home stands and the triple pedal units are available in white and black as well. Up next in the P-Series lineup, after the P125 comes the DGX-660, and as you can see, it's a lot different from everything else we've seen before. It's a big, wide slab with a large screen in the middle and a massive amount of buttons on the face of the instrument. You also have these two giant speaker grills in the front that's so much different from the 125, the 121, and the P45. So the DGX-660 is, in my opinion, kind of an outlier in the P-Series line. It doesn't share that much in common with the other instruments in the lineup, and it's really intended for, in my opinion, a totally different purpose than certainly the 121, the 125, and the final one in the listing, the P515. However, it does share several things with the other members of the P-Series family, including the action, which is the good old GHS action. The pedal unit is the same that we've already seen before in the others, and the power supply is the same that we've already seen before in the others, and the music desk is very reminiscent of the one that comes with the P45. So it does share many things in common with the other P-Series digital pianos. But there's a number of things that set it apart, and in my opinion, this is not so much of a professional digital piano. This isn't something you'd want to bring to a gig or use in a recording studio per se, but it is something that you might want to use at home just to have fun with, because that's what it's made to do. It has a lot of different arranger functionalities that the others don't have. You've got a smart chord setting, you can actually run a microphone through it, you can do all kinds of things that you really wouldn't want to do, and there's even some built-in lessons as well in the instrument. And so there's all sorts of things that this can do that the P125, even the P515 cannot do. You can do multi-track recordings in this instrument, which is really fantastic. You've got over 200 different songs that are built into it. You've also got a bunch of different rhythms in here as well that you can play with, and you have over 500 different voices in the instrument. Many of them are normal things such as pianos, electric pianos, guitars, basses, strings, orchestral sounds, but there's also some wacky things like fireworks and bird tweet noises. So you've got all kinds of fun sounds, all kinds of normal sounds, and all sorts of just all kinds of things that it can do. So in my opinion, the DGX-660 is an instrument that's geared more towards the home environment and not so much the gigging environment. Another thing that makes this really geared towards home is the fact that as far as direct out's concerned, it technically has one, again, like with the P45. In the back of the DGX-660, there is a singular output that is labeled output. In the settings, you can actually go in there and change the ohms of it to be engineered or optimized, I should say, for use as a headphone jack or use as a line out. However, I've run into problems using it as a line out signal before, and as a result, I have to record this the same way as the P45. Also, like the P45, when you plug in a jack into that input, the speakers will cut out, but this does have the ability to go in there and make the speakers always be on. But every time you turn off the instrument, it forgets all the settings you've had into it, at least for those two things, so that's a bit of a drawback. Overall, though, the DGX-660 definitely does have its place on the market, and one thing I haven't mentioned yet is that it does also come in white, and it comes with its own stand straight out of the box. While you can get a stand for the 45, the 121, the 125, and the 515, you have to buy them separately. This here comes with its own stand right out of the box, which is pretty cool. Let's try out my treble test piece on the first grand piano sample of the DGX-660, and then we'll move on to the final instrument in the list, the P515. That is the sound of the DGX-660, and as you can hear, once again, it is quite adequate. The speakers aren't as full sounding as you might expect from having such a large speaker grill and being relatively large speakers themselves. They are a little bit thin and don't have as much bass frequency as you might expect, but for the home practicing environment, they would be perfectly adequate. The DGX-660 has remained unchanged for many years. I used to have one back when I was like 8 or 9, maybe 10 when I got an instrument very similar to the DGX-660. It had a few less features, but it was, for all intents and purposes, the same exact instrument. And since then, it's basically remained pretty much unchanged, although the color and a few features are different on it now. So although it's been a staple in Yamaha's lineup for many, many years, it still continues to be a staple, and for the right person, this would be the ideal instrument. Let's check out the P515 now, though. The final digital piano in the lineup for the P series is the P515, and while it may not be the right digital piano for everybody, I think we can all agree that it is the highest quality piano in the P series lineup. The build quality is the highest, the accessories that come with it are of the highest quality, and the sound samples in this digital piano are like no other in the P series line. And in fact, I'd say that some of the samples in here are perhaps the best in its price class. This is, of course, a completely new price class compared to some of the others we've taken a look at, and the P515 generally seems to go around for $1,500 US, so it is rather pricey. Once again, like I mentioned before, you can also get the P515 in white and black, and you can also get a home stand and a triple pedal unit for this instrument. Like I mentioned, the accessories that come with it are of a higher quality than we've seen before, and that is definitely no exception with this music desk here. This is actually an interesting design music desk that's clear, as you can see, and it's also got a metal bottom part to it here that feels very nice. It's also very wide, too, which is really excellent. I like seeing digital pianos with a wide music desk, and overall, I think this is a fantastic idea, and also it looks pretty cool. The build quality of the P515 is far higher than anything else we've seen. We have thick, sturdy plastic up on top of here. We have a metal front plate here, and we also have a structured wood underneath panel thing that seems very, very solid and sturdy. The sides of the digital piano are plastic, but they're also shiny gloss, which looks pretty cool. A couple more accessories that are different with the P515 would, of course, be the power supply, which is very reminiscent of one that would come with a laptop. This is a bit of a tangly mess at the moment, but it's a 16-volt power supply, whereas everything else we've seen is a 12-volt power supply. If I can put this back without it falling on the floor and making an even bigger mess, I'll now talk about the pedal unit, which is by and far the best one we've seen so far. Everything else has come with that little foot switch, and the Yamaha actually comes with this pedal unit. Now, this pedal unit will be compatible with everything else on the list, so you could always buy one of these and upgrade the pedal switch to this pedal unit, but the P515 comes with this straight out of the box, and it's wonderful. This is the FC4A pedal unit, and I have no complaints with it at all. The build quality is excellent on it. You have a metal under panel here with big, thick, rubbery textured feet that do not slip and slide on any surface whatsoever. Maybe like a dusty concrete floor, but that's it. On the studio floor, they're fine. On carpet, they're fine. And on most floor surfaces, I think this pedal unit wouldn't give you any trouble at all. And the feel of the pedal itself, which is metal, by the way, is really wonderful. So this is a big upgrade compared to everything else we've seen so far. Another thing that's a big upgrade over everything else we've seen so far is the speakers themselves. They're big, they're boomy, they have a massive sound, and on the piano samples, I'd say that this digital piano is equally as loud as an upright piano for sure, maybe even a baby grand. It has a massive amount of power and presence, and it's really wonderful to listen to in person. You also have the same basic layout we've seen before with the P125, the 121, and such, with your metronome, rhythm, and tempo buttons being over here. You have a basic recorder over here. Your power switch is all the way over here. This one has a small screen in the middle as well that gives you some vital information. You have a menu that you can go through here and take a look at in the screen. It's powered off because my power supply is over here to show you guys. And then over here on the right, you also have your sounds as you had before. You can push the button over and over again, or use these arrows to cycle through the different sounds. And over here you have dual split button, you have a sound boost / EQ, and you also have a reverb button dedicated to the reverb. you hit those two at once, you also get a panel lock feature, which is quite nice. Like the P121 and the P125, you get a proper line output with this instrument, making it very good for gigging, although it is heavier than the 121 or the 125. And the reason for that is partly the build quality and partly the action in this digital piano. This is the NWX action from Yamaha, and in certain circles it's a little bit controversial. Some people say it's a bit too heavy, but for my taste, I love it. I think it's absolutely wonderful. It does have a heavier feel than everything else in the P series lineup, but that heavy feeling is more reminiscent of what you would find with a real acoustic piano. The feel and the dynamic response of this action is absolutely sublime, and playing, especially with the acoustic piano samples, but all of them really, is just a dream, and it's wonderful, wonderful to play. Let me hook up my pedal unit, my power supply, and power this thing on, and then give you guys a taste of how it sounds. There's two excellent piano samples on here. There's more than that, but the two first ones are the best, the CFX and the Bösendorfer sample, and I don't know which one I want to play because they're both so good, so I might cheat and play both those samples because they're both phenomenal. So first off, let's try the CFX Grand sample on the P515, and then after a while you'll see me reach up and push the button, and then I will move on to the Bösendorfer sample and maybe play a couple of things on there, because this is Yamaha's flagship and it sounds amazing, and it's so fun to play that I'll probably play a bit more than I'm supposed to in this video. It's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. That's the best way I can use to describe that Bösendorfer sample, and also the CFX sound as well. Both of those are absolutely amazing sounding, and between the two, the CFX definitely has its place. It's more versatile. You can play more types of music on it, and they'll sound good. For example, the Bösendorfer really doesn't work that great, in my opinion, with Clair de Lune, but certain types of music really make that Bösendorfer sample shine, and the music that I played there on it, I think, was some of the types of music that make it sound so beautiful. It has a massive amount of personality, if that makes any sense, for a digital piano sample. It has soul, it has life to it, and it's really, really beautiful. As you can see, I'm just gushing over the sound of this thing because it's absolutely amazing. It's by and far the best sounding in the P series line, and it's honestly one of the best sounding digital pianos that you can buy. I mean, obviously you can spend up to twice as much and get something that will sound as good or better, but in this price class, it is by far one of the best sounding digital pianos that you can get, and it's just wonderful. It's really, really amazing. And the playing experience is awesome too. Like I said, the action is on the heavier side of the spectrum, especially when it comes to digital pianos, but you have an excellent dynamic control. I'm sure you guys could hear how quiet I could play the Eric Satie and the other little piece of music that I played from Minecraft, and it's just an absolutely beautiful, beautiful playing experience. It's wonderful. It's really, really wonderful. This is by far the best P series instrument, and I absolutely love it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video as well. You probably didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed this P515, but nonetheless, I hope you guys did enjoy it. All of Yamaha's P-Series instruments are truly wonderful, from the bottom of the line P45 to the flagship P515. They all have their place, and for their price, they are all honestly awesome. Of course, the P45 has its shortcomings, and it is nowhere near as good as the P515, but for the price, you're getting a very good digital piano. The P121 is compact and very easy to use, and also very light and very portable for those of you looking for something like that. And the P125 is its bigger, slightly more versatile brother because of those extra keys. The DGX-660 is kind of unlike everything else in this price class, and in my opinion, it has slightly less of a professional air about it and more of a let's have fun type of vibe to it. It has a lot of features and arranger type functionalities that you wouldn't find or need on a stage piano like this, but it still is very, very nice for the right person. And I've said enough nice things about the P515. Do I need to say more? It's lovely. I adore it. It's awesome. It's really fantastic. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, you might want to go check out my channel, especially if you're new here. I have lots of cool videos of acoustic pianos, digital pianos, organs, keyboards, clavichords, all kinds of cool stuff. So if any of that sounds cool, you might want to think about subscribing to the channel. And if you do that, thank you very much. And don't forget that those ads that you see in my videos are paying for videos like this. So if you're enjoying these type of videos, then hopefully you won't mind the ads as much. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for supporting the channel, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.